This exhibition, Thomas Cole's Studio, Memory and Inspiration, is a look at the great American landscape painter Thomas Cole's career, but also at the end of his life when he designed a purpose-built studio that he occupied for a little over a year until his death in 1848. It looks at both what he was working on, created during the period he was using the studio, but also at his career as a whole. And in this case, we are actually doing something that he'd done for the first time, which is recreating the sense of the new studio as a studio, because we've brought together works of art from all periods of Cole's career and combined them with an installation of studio materials that would have been present in the working studio to give you a sense that this was a place where art was created. That's what studios are. They're places where art is made. Other artists could come to this shrine to Thomas Cole and see what he was doing as a working artist, see the works that he created, where he was thinking of going in his career. And in this way, it's a kind of summary both of what Cole achieved and how important what he achieved was for what became in American landscape painting of the mid-19th century. The exhibition has got some distinct sections, and it begins with a selection of Cole's career from his early days in the late 1820s and the 1830s, and looks at the different types of paintings and the different places where he painted. It has some very recognizable subjects like Niagara Falls. Then we have different kinds of subjects. For instance, you'll see a scene of the Colosseum. He traveled to Italy in the 1830s, and he was fascinated to see the monuments of human civilization as they had changed over time from their beginnings and their grand realizations to its decay and the gradual return of nature. This was a sort of theme that was present throughout Cole's career. We also have other examples of American wilderness. There's a large painting in the center of the wall called Tornado in an American Forest, which shows that wild scenery that Cole had already begun to become famous for. Storm-blasted trees, tumultuous skies, the power, the drama of nature. We also have a marvelous small painting of clouds, probably done outdoors while Cole was looking at the sky, brushing rapidly to capture that transitory, that transition of the cloud as it moves through dark and light. We think of that kind of vision of nature as not something really of the Romantic era. Makes us think probably of much later in the 19th century, of the Impressionists. But this section of the exhibition gives you a sense of this first sort of 10, 15 years of Cole's career, that he's doing lots of different things. So in visiting the new studio, both at the time when you might have come as a young aspiring artist, or now, you get to see a snapshot across Cole's career in terms of types of work, subjects, places, etc. Cole was, if nothing else, a very ambitious painter. Cole was very much aware of the fact that there were kind of rankings of how important a picture could be in terms of how important its subject was and the message it conveyed. A painting just of a pure landscape might be beautiful, it might be meaningful in certain ways, but it didn't offer the same possibilities, Cole felt, that his imagination offered. If he would come up with his own subjects that were allegorical, that told stories that had meanings, moral meanings. Probably the most famous of that type of work in Thomas Cole's entire career, both in his own day and in ours today, is a 4-part series called The Voyage of Life. And it imagines what was already an old idea, even by Thomas Cole's time, of life unfolding like a river. And the 4 canvases of The Voyage of Life begin with a scene set at dawn of a little boat coming out of a cavern with a child who is being guided by a kind of guardian angel. And over the next 3 paintings, that figure ages. The next painting is called Youth, the 3rd painting called Manhood, the 4th painting called Old Age. The figure ages, the landscape changes, the time of day changes, the nature of the landscape changes, but by the end of the series, in old age, the figure is looking to a different stage of life. That's the end of life and what might lie beyond. And in this exhibition, we have 4 original studies, much smaller, but studies where Cole was working out his ideas, literally testing himself on canvas. This would have allowed artists and others who came to want to understand Cole's imaginative process as well as his technical process. So by being able to see the artist thinking was also an incredibly enriching way for artists who wanted to understand this great artist's achievement. On the easel is a painting which is fascinating for a number of reasons. A large unfinished canvas with clouds. We don't know exactly what this painting was going to be, but the fact that it never was finished allows us to imagine again Cole, the creative figure. He's thinking about things. He's physically creating the painting, but he's still thinking about what he wants to do. Scratched into the wet paint are two figures, an angel and a child who's carrying a cross. And the angel seems to be guiding the child somewhere, but Cole was thinking about lots of things in the late years of his life, 1847-48. One of those things was an idea for a series that he did not live to complete entirely, that followed up on his earlier great series, The Course of Empire, The Voyage of Life, and this was to be The Cross and the World, to be a 5-part series that looked at two individuals. One, the pilgrim of the cross, who goes through life seeking salvation, trying to follow the ways that will lead to eternal life, essentially. And the other, the pilgrim of the world, a figure who's interested in the pleasures of earthly existence and not so concerned about the spiritual consequences and what happens at the end. That 5-part series, it was so important that he did it without a commission. He believed very strongly that part of his mission as an artist was to create these publicly accessible morality pieces, essentially in paint. Paintings that would have been the largest serial paintings that he had done at this point, clearly meant for public exhibition, and probably meant to be turned into prints that could be made popularly available. The 3 finished canvases survived for many years after Cole's death. Unfortunately, they've been lost. So what we have to represent that series are 4 studies for the paintings, but they give you a sense of what Cole's ambitions were as an artist. The last part of the exhibition just has one painting called The Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd is, in fact, the last painting that Thomas Cole lived to complete. But also there is a lithograph of the painting. As far as we know, it was actually drawn on the stone by Cole, but he died before he had a chance to see it published. It was his widow, Maria Cole, who actually did that. It's likely that since Cole went to the trouble of preparing that lithograph of the Good Shepherd, he would probably have done the same thing with The Cross and the World. The chance to experience his art would best be realized by this sort of, in a way, mass marketing of himself. He didn't live to see that happen, but it's a glimpse, again, of what he was thinking at the end of his career, of his duty to the public, to the world at large. Now, it was a challenge in thinking about an exhibition such as Thomas Cole's Studio, Memory and Inspiration, to identify the works of art that we could be secure in knowing that would have been physically present in the space. Some of the things we have are standard sorts of sources, but there are also some very important photographs. One of them was probably made in the 1880s. We can see a woman seated in this space. That was Cole's daughter, Emily, actually the only other person who used the space as a studio. After Cole's death, she actually was a flower painter, a china painter. But there's another photograph that's even richer in what it shows us, although it's from a much later period, of when the new studio was used by Thomas Cole's surviving family as an antique store. The walls are floor to ceiling with works of art, and those can be, with patience, can be identified. This exhibition offers the chance for visitors today to have something of the experience that would have been possible for visitors 100 years ago, 130 years ago, where you could come into the space where Cole created his works of art and in that way be inspired and have your own life enriched. That we have that opportunity is thanks largely to Cole's family. They were very, very dedicated to keeping his memory alive. And this was the principal place where they did that, like a kind of shrine to Cole's memory. That we have that opportunity again today is, I think, one of the critically important and wonderful things about doing an exhibition like this.